Welcome to a special live edition of the Outlet Forum. I'm your host, Chris Camello, joined as always by my esteemed co-host, Chaez Pearson. A lot going on over the last week with all of the NBA free agent frenzy. We got the NBA. This is the NBA Summer League. You've also got the Olympic friendlies going on right now, right before the Summer Olympics. So just when you think there's an off season, there's no off season. So strap in right now. We're breaking it all down for you. We got a lot to get into, including what was a historic moment yesterday, Chaez. You know what that was? Steph throwing a lob to LBJ for the first time ever as Olympic teammates in a competitive setting. Yes, they've done it in the All-Star game many a time, but this was the first time they actually did it in a very competitive setting. But I think one of the biggest news is no news coming from the LA Lakers. Just like George Costanza once said about the pitch, it's a show about nothing. And right now, Chaez, the Lakers free agency is a show about, finish it.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Just about fucking nothing.
Everyone else around them is doing stuff, right? Everyone's making signings. Everyone's making trades, signing trades. DeMar DeRozan, who everyone thought was going to be the backup plan, he now not only didn't go to the Lakers, he decided to go into the division, signing with the Sacramento Kings via sign and trade, 3 years, $73.7 million, a third-year player option, partially guaranteed at $10 million. So now Sacramento has kind of got their own little big three going on up there. Phoenix gets some solid. So, Chaez, I think that's one of the biggest stories right now. Let's get into that. Why did DeMar DeRozan, you think, choose the Sacramento Kings over not even just the Lakers, but even like a winning environment in Miami? I wanted to get your thoughts on that, man.
I think overall, really, he just was ready to come back to the West Coast. He's been on the West Coast. He's obviously born and raised in Compton. He's been on the East Coast for the majority of his career, playing for the Toronto Raptors and the Chicago Bulls. Where else did he play? I feel like he plays somewhere else as well. No, that's it.
For like 3 years.
Right, yeah, exactly. So he's been Midwest for a little bit, but DeMar finally came home. So just like Kendrick said, Toronto didn't deserve him, and Sacramento got him. And not only did he end up in Sacramento, he got the bag. He got the 3-year extension as well. And I think he's going to fit well. I think that Harrison Barnes was just they held on to Harrison Barnes for way too long, right? Harrison Barnes wasn't scaring anybody. Harrison Barnes was not, that player that was going to get them over the hump to be able to do something that they haven't done in ever, pretty much, right? The last time the Sacramento Kings were even viable, in my opinion, was the mid-2000s, 2006. Like after they got rid of Vlade Divac, Chris Webber, and Peja Stojakovic and Mike Bibby, and that whole plan went away. They were never the same. But De'Aaron Fox is that guy. So you pair him with a guy like DeMar DeRozan, and if Sabonis can, stay healthy, and their shooters can do what they do, Herter and man.
Well, Blake Monk, they got Keegan Murray.
Right, they got Murray as well. So and he is actually. He might be one of the top 5 shooters in all of the league, to be truly honest with you.
For sure. And I think it was something, like you said, Sacramento needed to make a move. And I thought they kind of dropped the ball on this last year. I was the one saying, go after Kyle Kuzma. Go after one of these wing players who, can play maybe both forward positions. Now, DeMar is more, I would say, a 2, possibly a 3. But the one thing about DeMar is now there won't be as much focus on De'Aaron Fox. You've got 2 guys in that backcourt who could create their own shot. Actually, 3 if Malik Monk is in there, in a closing lineup. So I think Sacramento did a really good job. I still believe they need to address their backcourt. I'm sorry, not their backcourt, their front court. They could use one more big man to go alongside Sabonis to take on, the Denvers, some of the bigger teams, the Minnesotas, even OKC has kind of gotten bigger over the offseason. So I think that's the one thing that they may need to address. But you know what? With this move of DeMar DeRozan in the guard position, you're not going to be able to play all these guards, right? So maybe they consider flipping a guy like Kevin Herter in order to address their front court. I think there could be one more move that Monty McNair makes up there in Sacramento in order to give this team and this roster a little bit more balance.
Why do I feel like Rashawn Holmes should be on this roster but isn't?
Well, and he opted out of his deal in Washington, so he's a free agent right now. Bismack Biyombo's a free agent. Chimezi Metu, former Sacramento King. Rashawn Holmes, former Sacramento King. Those could be cheaper options to get, but I'm saying, should they go big at this point? Should they put themselves maybe in the Jared Allen sweepstakes?
Absolutely. I mean, you're pretty much they're about 2 players away from being a top 3 seed in the West again, because it's clear and evident that they don't have the depth and they didn't have the bench that they needed in order to be able to get over the hump and even make the playoffs. So
Right.
I think they really just fell apart really towards the end. And Mike Brown is really, I don't think he's going to be on the hot seat, but he's going to have to really turn around what he did from the previous year before to last year to this upcoming season. So I think Mike Brown is going to have a lot of pressure because De'Aaron Fox isn't going anywhere. Obviously, DeMar DeRozan now isn't going anywhere, and Sabonis is, an All-NBA player technically. So,
Sure. And for
Sacramento Kings on paper should be a lot better than they were, but other teams on the West are getting better and better and better, kind of like the Lakers. But I think a lot of people would disagree. But let's go ahead and jump into that topic, Chris. And specifically for this topic, we always got to jump into crypto because the crypto.com arena is where it's at ultimately. You know what I mean? Like it just feels
background.
It feels right? You know what I mean? Like it just feels right in there. Chris, what do you make of not only the fact that LeBron James signed back with the Lakers for another 2 years, 1+1 deal on the option, pretty much $50 million a year, 51, 52. I think it was 51.4 to be honest, to be exact.
And the King actually ended up signing for just under $3 million less, even though there was rumors that he was going to consider taking a $12 million pay cut for guys like James Harden, DeMar DeRozan, and Klay Thompson. Yeah, those were the 3. I want to say there was a 4th, but I wasn't sure if Paul George was one of them. Anyway, he didn't end up taking a significant pay cut, but he took enough for them to avoid the second apron. Obviously, he wanted to get this contract situated before the Olympic training camp basically started, because the Olympics are happening in the next 2 weeks. So they're going to be going to Abu Dhabi. They're going to be all over the place. They just played the friendly against Canada yesterday in Vegas. So, I mean, look, are the Lakers a bad team? No. But they're not, as currently constructed, they're not a championship contender. They can be potentially a top 6 team in the West. However, everyone's talking about, well, look at the Clippers and look at Denver. Everyone kind of took a bit of a backseat. Minnesota hasn't made a ton of major moves. But
They can't. Just because ownership, they're one of the teams above the second apron. And obviously you're hearing that a lot, first apron, second apron. They're one of those, I believe, 5 teams that are above the second apron that really can't do anything. So go ahead.
For sure. But I think the fact is they haven't been able to find a taker for D'Angelo Russell's contract. And this was something I pointed out to last year, was D'Angelo's market, if you recall, last year was shallow. That's why he took a 2-year deal with the Lakers, because the Lakers knew, we got you by the bootstraps. No one else really wants you. Take another 1+1. If you ball out, if you play well, you could opt out. And maybe either us or someone else could offer you a 3-year, 4-year deal elsewhere. That didn't happen. He opted in. Nobody wants to take on an expiring contract for a guy, for all intents and purposes, had a good season. Yes, he didn't play well in the first-round playoff series against Denver. He was slightly better than he was the year before. But I think teams look at D'Angelo Russell, including a team like Orlando, who could have used a point guard, and they were even like, "Now we're good. We'll take KCP." So what does that tell you, Chaz? The fact that the Lakers could not move his contract unless they attach other things with it, like their first-round draft picks, it really has, I think, limited their options even more on how to improve this team via free agency, or even via trade for that matter. So it's like if you want to make any move, you got to attach those 2 first-round picks, or at least one of them. And Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss is hesitant to do that. So is this front office incompetency, or is this ownership trying to really watch the spending as of right now? Because I kind of think it's the latter, in addition to the former.
Okay, look, so sometimes you'll put out your plan, you'll write it out, you put it on your vision board, you'll do all the stuff that you thought that you should have did in order to, really realize your dream and put everything into fruition. And sometimes there's just a Mack truck that just comes through and just messes up everything. And you got to be able to put the pieces together to be able to fix it, or able to move forward, or even to, have a chance. And I think that's really what happened with the team. They had a plan. They had a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And none of that shit worked out. DeJounte Murray went off the board. Yep. Trae Young obviously was never really in play.
Valanciunas
signed for way more money than the Lakers were even going to be able to offer him. To be truly honest, he signed for $10 million a year.
And
there's no way.
Quickly, sorry to interrupt, but I think that's important. He signed with Washington the very first day. Like, dude, that contract was waiting for you there July 7th, July 8th. Did you not want to at least give the Lakers a chance to see what they can do? Like, that was the other thing. Anyway, I wanted to point that out. Continue.
I mean, he was about his bread. My man was about his bread as soon as the clock hit 0. You know what I mean? So I don't blame him. There's a lot of teams that are going to bad teams because the salary cap has gone up. The salary cap is going to continue to go up because of this 11-year deal that was just announced with the NBA, and NBC is back in the fold. Yeah, that's coming back. TNT, they're not all the way on the outs, but it looks like with Charles retiring, they're pretty much going to be on the out. I don't know where Shaq is going to end up. That's really interesting. He's probably going to be the hottest free agent in all of media. What'd you say?
I think those guys are going to end up on the Amazon side, similar to what Amazon did with the NFL crew. Remember, they kind of put together a mash unit. Carissa Thompson, Richard Sherman, different guys from different networks. Kirk Herbstreit. Yeah, so Al Michaels. So I think don't be surprised if Amazon gives Shaq and or Kenny Smith, maybe even Charles as well, a blank check and say, write down a number, don't tell us what it is, and we have an agreement.
So, I mean, yeah, exactly. Now, we'll see what happens with all of that, but I say all that to say there's billions of dollars that's funneling back into the league, and there are guys that are going to get paid 20, 30 million, 40 million. I mean, by the time Wemby gets 10 years in the league, he might be the first $100 million a year player in any sport.
Right. Because
that's how much money is being funneled into the league with this deal. So I love to see it. I love to see people get paid. But really, ultimately, for the Lakers, I just think it really comes down to the fact that they just didn't have things go their way. Klay Thompson opted for less money. Did you hear how hurt Michael Thompson was in that sound with Sirius NBA XM radio? He was absolutely devastated, and then having to come back and talk to his boys and talk to his employer and everybody else about why his son didn't choose the team that he won a championship with, in terms of Michael Thompson previously, who played in the 80s with Magic and Kareem and Coop and B. Scott and everybody else. So, man, I'm not going to lie. That one hurt. That one hurt, Chris.
Hey,
that one hurt.
Klay is the exact opposite of Bronny. He's the exact opposite of Bronny.
For real, bro.
I think this is a good way to transition. I mean, we'll see what the Lakers end up doing. There's still trade options out there, but I just think I'm really interested to see what they end up doing. They hired a few assistant coaches. They actually brought one back from Frank Vogel's squad. Greg St. Jean, I think. So he's going to have a role on Reddick's staff. So you have somebody with some familiarity with the situation with the Lakers. But I want to talk a little bit about Lakers Summer League as well. Dalton Connect, Colin Castleton, Maxwell Lewis, they've all played well. They've all had good moments through these first 3 games. And I want to say all 3 of them probably had their best game in this recent loss to the Miami Heat. But I wanted to get your take on Bronny. What have you seen? Anything impressive, anything not so impressive, or is it just too early to tell?
I think the one thing that impressed me most was that of his size out there on the floor. Pause. He was just out there, the length. He was out there just D'ing up guys. Obviously, he's not going to stop anybody. He's not going to be a Kobe stopper. Rest in peace. He's not going to be, an all-time great stopper, but the size and length that he had out there on the perimeter for me, I was just like, okay, we can work with this. Like I didn't see what he had looked like in competition, obviously, in a long time. It's in terms of a televised game or anything like that, because obviously I'm not pulling up to UCLA Medical to watch Bronny work out. So, and El Segundo. So he looked good out there. Now he's going to get his shot together. He's going to have confidence. He's got to, really get a feel for the game and the speed of the game, because the speed of the game is just going to continue to rise and rise from summer league to training camp to regular season, or to preseason to regular season to even in season now to regular season, since we're going to have, obviously there's those games that are clearly at literally at a different pace than regular season games are, which is kind of weird to say, which is why I sound like an idiot saying it, but that's just kind of the world that we're living in with the NBA and the changes that they're making. But I think that he's going to play well, and anybody that says that Bronny doesn't deserve the spot or anything like that just doesn't know what they're talking about. He's going to be a solid player. Now, is he going to be an all-time great like his dad? Is he going to be the type of player that's always going to do great things year in and year out? I don't know. Like we'll see. We'll see. But I think ultimately just the fact that he's out there, he realized his dream. I mean, I'm one of them, I'm a kid that had a dream of going to the NBA. That's why I'm talking to you guys about it. I love it that much, at 9, 10 o'clock at night. But there are people, he's one of the 450 that are going to be on an NBA roster getting paid $1 million plus per year in order to play basketball. So anybody that's hating on that, I get why you would hate on that. That's everybody's dream. So but at the end of the day, it doesn't make it right is really my point. So
I think one of the things that adds to it is the fact that it felt, and I'm not saying I particularly feel this way, but I don't think it's too far from the truth. They did want to, LeBron had opted out. I think there was this element of, a historic moment. Yes, I know Pelinka talked about that, but also if we could keep our biggest star. Yes, he's about to be 40 this year. If we could keep him happy and have this moment with his son, something he talked about a few different times, then why not have it here? Especially if we could kind of get him in the later part of the draft. The other thing that bothers people is the fact that he did not play well in college. Now, we understand part of the reason why he had the heart issue. We weren't even sure if he was going to play at all last year, Chaz. Remember that? After everything that happened, he was in the hospital. So he missed the first 8 games. He was trying to ramp up. There's always the element with any injury, let alone a heart issue, a health issue, let's call it, where you need to go through this process where you're not thinking about it when you're out on the floor. And I would say that if someone's coming off elbow surgery, Tommy John, where it's like, is my elbow going to be okay? Yeah, you're pitching. Yeah, you're well enough. But are you actively thinking about it? That can mess with your head. Remember, we forget so much of sports is confidence. It's a lot of it is between the ears as well. So he was behind the rest of his team. But the fact that he didn't really ball out at USC on a team that wasn't that great, in a conference that wasn't great, I think that was another thing where it's like, did this kid really deserve the opportunity? That's where some of those other questions spawned from as well. I'm just saying that's kind of the climate that I'm reading.
I'm not mad at it though.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at it. I understand where it comes from, but it just doesn't. It goes into when someone goes to try and make their point about how they feel about it. In my experience, they just don't have a leg to stand on. So when they hit that wall, they're just like, oh, so you're just hating? It's like, yes, I am. Yes, I am hating, but I just don't want to say it. So it's just like, all right, let's just move on. So,
And Chaz, you compound that with the frustration of not making big moves. 4 years now removed from a title. A lot of early playoff exits. Yeah, they were in the conference finals in 23, but look before that. Ousted in the first round in 21. 22 didn't make the playoffs at all. They have fumbled coaches. They have fumbled opportunities. They haven't gotten the big, another big star that's worked out. So I think all of that also compounds the problem. If they were just coming off of a championship or at least a finals appearance, then I think I don't think the furor would be as hot. You know what I'm saying? I think all of these frustrations and people blaming LeBron for some of them, and now it's like, we're tailoring this team toward LeBron, and where's it exactly getting us? Where's the winning moves at?
But here's the thing, Chris.
I'm just telling you, that's the climate, bro. You see the same thing as I do.
Absolutely, but he won a championship. He brought a championship to the franchise in year two, and he going on year seven. Damn,
2018.
After this season, he'll be a Laker just as long as he was a Cav in that first stint after he was drafted. And if he finishes his contract, he'll be a Laker more tenured more than any other team that he's played for. And that includes the Cavs twice, which is pretty amazing. I would have never guessed that, Chris. I would have never guessed that.
No, I honestly thought 5 years, to be honest. When he got here, I figured, given his age, he was already in year 15 when he got to the Lakers. I figured, 5 years. I thought he was going to probably retire by the 22 or 23 season, but he's still playing at a high level. But there are some people who are very frustrated, people that I know, people that we've seen in our chats and stuff. And it's like, if you would have made Bronny, I hate to say this, but stay with me. If they would have made Bronny an afterthought by hitting it big in free agency with the trade, it would have softened the blow. Yeah, people would have still made their remarks, but because there's nothing else going on and you've hired an inexperienced coach and you drafted his son, who only averaged, 4 or 5 points a game at USC in his one and only season there, that adds the fuel to the fire. That adds to the anger. So I think that's where a lot of the hate comes from, justified or not. And he's a good kid. That's the thing. It's not like he's out there acting a fool like Dylan Brooks or something like that or anything. He's doing his thing. He's saying all the right things. He's trying to make, he's only played 3 summer league games, actually just 2. Because he had the knee issue. So we'll see what happens. And he's going to probably end up, Chaz, spending most of that season in the G League with the South Bay Lakers, getting those reps in, I think.
Hey, but if he can play like Taylor Horton Tucker, like he did in 2019, 2020, and pretty much ramp his way up all through the season. And when they really need you most in April and May, you show up. I would love that for the kid. But speaking of not only his team, but his dad, LeBron James, he's over in Vegas playing with Team USA, and they absolutely blew the doors off of Team Canada in that scrimmage. Think of it more so as a preseason game for Team USA, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, I love the fact that everybody got around 18, 19, 20 minutes. You got to see LeBron James, Steph Curry lob. You got to see Anthony Edwards take over. You got to see AD in international tournament for the first time since 2012. I haven't seen we haven't seen AD since Kobe last played in the Olympics, essentially, which was
and he was
12 years ago.
Was their college pick, let's call it.
Right, exactly. He was a latener of that team. So we're getting out of the crypto.com arena and back into our regular space since we are no longer on Laker subjects. But
we'll call this.
Chris, what did you make of the game last night, and not only the scene with Barack and all the celebrities there, but also what do you think of this team, and do they really have what it takes to win gold, or or they're going to be a little shaky down the stretch? Because I don't know, man. Joel Embiid did not look like.
Yeah,
he didn't look like that. So
fouled out in 12 minutes. That was embarrassing. And by the way, shout out to Anthony Davis. He was one of the more impressive ones out there. 10 points, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks actually, one of his last walks, I don't know if you could hear it. He actually said, "Man, get that shit out of here."
Get that shit out, bro.
I actually heard that coming in. No, the team should be fine. They should be at least have an opportunity to medal. And Canada's no joke, by the way. That was a very good early test because Canada knocked them out last year, if you recall, in the Euro. I think it's the Euro Cup or Euro World Cup, something like that. The FIBA World Cup. They used to call
World
it.
Cup. Yeah.
FIBA World Cup. So obviously that team is not this team. This team, you've got 11 All-Stars just last year alone. You got a handful of first ballot Hall of Famers. You got guys with multiple championships on that roster. They should be good. And they didn't even have Kevin Durant last night, nor did they have Kawhi Leonard. We know he's no longer with the team. He's dropping out. But
his replacement, Derek White, wasn't there yet.
We'll get there. Yeah, exactly. White isn't there yet. We'll get to that in a second. But the team looked good. They're a little rusty offensively. You could tell guys still have to get used to playing with each other. I'm sure Steve Kerr's going to figure out the right lineups and rotations. I like the coaching staff. Ty Lue, Eric Spoelstra, Mark Few, really solid head coach out of Gonzaga. These guys have now been together for a few tournaments, so they know each other well. It's just going to be really about dialing it in offensively. I think their defense is going to be great because, you've got Drew Holiday. You've got, a lot of guys that could D up from that position. Bam and AD along with Embiid. Once Embiid stays out of foul trouble, he's going to be good. Derek White with Holiday. We know that's a lockdown backcourt as well. Once they start getting going, even Halliburton and Edwards are solid defenders. So I think you're going to see this team really, once they start getting comfortable, more familiar with each other, they're going to lock it down. And Steph said something interesting before I turn it over to you. He even said, "It's not about your stats. Just go out there and do whatever you can to help us win." And if you have that mentality, and I know that's something John Calipari, when he was at Kentucky, he always emphasized, it's not about your numbers. It's about winning, and if you happen to score or play great. But all that matters is that we get the W. And as long as those guys have that kind of unselfish mentality, they're going to be in it to win it toward the end.
Yeah. But here's the one thing that I found out. Anthony Edwards is going to back up every little bit of what he said to the media, even though he may have said it tongue-in-cheek and half-jokingly. He's going to back it up, and he's going to do exactly what he said. He's going to be that guy. He's going to be Mr. Consistency for the team when the old guys aren't really getting off to the great start because, that's just what old guys do. And yes, I'm calling Steph Curry, LeBron James especially,
Durant,
Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid. He may not be old, but he's got an old body. So when I say old guys, those are the guys that I'm talking about. And you could already see it when AD, Jason Tatum, and Ant-Man came in the game. That's when everything flipped. And they started running SGA and Dylan Brooks and RJ Barrett all up and down the court. And the next thing you knew, they were up by 12, 14 points, covering the spread, I might add, if you didn't have any money on the game. And they absolutely covered the game at the end of the day. So I love the way that they played. Obviously, they have a long way to go because there are a lot of teams that play very well. Australia is going to be a good team that they're going to have to face. Spain is still going to be a good team that they have to face. And I'm really wondering what France is going to look like now that Wemby has had a year of NBA under his belt to pair with Rudy Gobert and that French team. So the Olympics are going to be turned up. Get your Peacock subscriptions, free advertisement for them because you don't want to miss really what Team USA or anybody in the Olympics is going to do, because I'm really excited for this one personally. But specifically this team, especially also because it's the last time that you'll see LeBron James play in any international competition, especially with Steph Curry, AD, KD, Embiid. I can't believe the fact that we got Embiid to play.
Well, right? Remember, he was going to pick between three countries: the U.S., France, or Cameroon, which is, I believe, where he's actually from, where he actually grew up. So the fact that he took he was able to become naturalized and play for Team USA, that's huge, because I'm not sure of another center, American-born center, that they could have thrown out there. Maybe Walker Kessler. I don't know, maybe Chet Holmgren. I mean, and those guys aren't exactly, super established, maybe Karl Anthony Towns.
I don't know. There's a whole slew of guys. All I know is one guy should have made it, and that's Jaylen Brown.
100%.
Jaylen Brown should have definitely made the team. Why did Derek White get the invite instead of Jaylen Brown? I don't know. There's obviously clear something there. Grant Hill spoke to it. I got to put a team together. Look, man, there's just nothing you can say that excuses leaving Jaylen Brown, the current reigning NBA Finals MVP of less than 30 days ago, right? He's had the trophy. He literally pulled up to the ESPYs with the trophy, the big one, even though he left the little one at home, even though he got both. So
For sure.
I don't know. You just can't excuse Jaylen Brown being left off that team.
100%. And think about it. Who withdrew from the team? Kawhi Leonard, a 3-and-D, perhaps still, when healthy, the best 3-and-D small forward we have in the game. I mean, if he's not number one, he's certainly in the top 3 to top 5. So you would have essentially been replacing Kawhi with someone who's Kawhi-esque in Jaylen Brown. That was the first guy I thought of when they said, Kawhi's going to withdraw. I'm like, Jaylen Brown, get him on the phone. Because also too, Chaz, look how spry and fresh Jason Tatum, Andrew Holiday looked yesterday. Why? Because they're only less than a month removed from winning a championship. So those legs are still relatively fresh. So Jaylen Brown would have really, kind of picked up where they left off, not to mention fill that void left behind by Kawhi. Because, LeBron, you can't ask him to go out there and lock up another team's, best wing, whether it be Giannis or Luka or any of those guys, right? Durant is dealing with his own calf injury. So who else can you depend on who has size, length, athleticism, defensive prowess, and could still score 15 to 20 points on any given night outside of Jaylen Brown? No disrespect to White. White's going to be fine. He's going to fit in just fine off the ball, defense, all of that stuff. But, man, Jaylen Brown really got snubbed.
How injured are these guys, Chris?
Kawhi withdrew from the team.
I obviously Kawhi is very injured because he's not on the team anymore. But I'm talking like Embiid, KD, like
Embiid's not fresh. Embiid's been probably sitting around for. Don't forget, the guys who got eliminated early in the playoffs, those are the guys that actually looked the worst, with the exception of maybe Bam Adebayo. Embiid did not looked obviously rusty yesterday. LeBron, those legs looked a little heavy. I know he had the alley-oop, but early on, Chaz, he did not look super sharp in that game. So I think the guys that got eliminated early in the playoffs, those are the guys that I think might be the most behind conditioning, with the exception of, like I said, Bam, AD, Devin Booker. Those guys actually looked pretty sharp. Yes, Steph. But, yeah, as far as injured, I don't know about Durant. I think that's the biggest question mark right now. And we'll see what happens with him. But, yeah, Kawhi's knee situation, clearly Ty Lue must have seen something as well where it's like, you're all we've got now. So if we got to send your ass home, sorry, man. I know you want that gold medal, but we're also we need you to help us sell some tickets. That
didn't make any sense. I thought it was just a waste really from the get-go. And to be honest with you, it just makes Kawhi look – it makes the Clippers organization look bad. It makes Kawhi look bad. It kind of makes Team USA look bad as well, just all parties involved, because it's pretty obvious that this guy should not have played, even though he was invited, and if he could have, he would have. It just didn't look – the optics of it just didn't look right. But kind of before we get into this last topic, really quick, Chris, the PG topic. Was Daryl Morey a liar? Like with James Harden? Did he really lie to James Harden? Because if he did the 76ers a huge favor by doing so, because James Harden is now playing for $35 million for the next 2 years in LA on a worse team, and they pulled off Paul George for 4 years, $212 million. And Paul George is talking about how he got offered, 2 years, 60, when Kawhi got 3 years, 150. I don't understand what Lawrence Frank was thinking. Chris, can you just take me through that really quick on this last topic? Because they talked about it ad nauseum, but from our perspective, like PG really should have stayed with the Clippers, especially if they would have given him his 150, which is what he said he would have asked for, and that's all he asked for. He wasn't really asking for the max, but he got the max, so God is good. What do you make it?
Clearly very interesting negotiations from the start. I think they were trying to, pull a fast one on Paul. We know you're playing in your hometown. You want to stay here. You want to retire here. You've said it. So you know what? And I think they took advantage of that. They took advantage of the fact he is getting a little bit older. They took advantage of the fact that they thought they could lowball him and he would be okay with it. That was their first problem. Their second offer should have been the first offer. That was their biggest issue on that. Now he was trying to say, now here's where Paul screwed up. I felt me and Kawhi are the same. You're not the same, brother. Sorry. That man next to you.
No, but no. He didn't say that. He was like, you said that you view us as the same.
Right. Okay. You're right.
Whether he actually believes that is one thing or another. But if they said that, which they likely did because they were in a negotiation. So if you view me like you view Kawhi, give me what Kawhi got. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, and he even understood, and then he claimed that Kawhi actually took less on the extension as well.
He did.
Right. So I think he took 3 for 150. Is that correct?
Right, which wasn't the max.
Which wasn't the max. No, it was a little bit less than what AD got in his extension. I think it was about 16 to 17 million less because I think AD got on his extension.
AD got 62 a year. I think it was like 3 years, 180.
Okay, I think it's a little less than that, but that's fine. So Kawhi took less. Okay,
like 3 years, 190 actually. I think
was it 190? Okay,
like
Anyway, but they both got a 3-year extension. AD's was obviously closer to the max. Kawhi's was slightly under, but it's still a handsome payday. And maybe Kawhi did that under the guise of, if I got to take less to keep PG here, and then you guys get Harden to keep this core intact so we could go at this for the next 2 to 3 years, that's fine. I think they also wanted to align the contracts. The problem was, I think they try to take advantage of the fact that he's aging, the fact that he's a hometown guy, and also the fact that he has struggled in the playoffs, and trying to basically say, you know what, we might be able to get to sell him on that. That way we could kind of put those resources into keeping Harden as well. But at worst, we still have a co-star with Kawhi should Paul decide to leave. So they almost made Paul George, I think at the end of the day, feel expendable. That was their biggest mistake.
Damn.
Was they made him feel expendable. And then at that point, Paul's like, then you're just going to have to give me the max. Nope, you're bluffing. So it was a really piss poor negotiation. And I can't blame Paul for Paul George, for basically saying adios to the Clippers, because guess what? He knew the Sixers were going to be there. He knew that, right? He knew the Sixers didn't want DeRozan or Ingram or any of these other guys. They wanted him. I'm sure he had a conversation with Embiid that night that they did NBA Countdown together during the finals. He knew that was in their back pocket.
They talked way before that. I'm promise you they talked way before that.
That was probably the most recent conversation. He still gave the Clippers an opportunity. They fumbled that. Lawrence Frank definitely fumbled that, and the rest of the front office did. Steve Ballmer. I think the apron thing may have come into play here, but clearly they decided to undervalue and lowball Paul George because they felt they could. And that's always a big mistake sometimes. And now he's gone, and you're stuck with Kawhi with a shot knee, maybe 2, pudgy James Harden, and a collection of spare parts. Welcome to the Intuit Dome, brother. Enjoy those season tickets, Clipper Darrell.
They're gonna have a rough time. I will go to the Intuit Dome because I like to see Inglewood win. So I'm gonna drop my couple $100 into the pot so that way they can fix some of those potholes over there for the city. But look, man, ultimately, I like it. I like what PG did. He used his ace in the hole, and sometimes that's just what you got to do. Sure. And he did it, and he got his 212. He got his security. He's going to be making $50+ million when he's 38 and don't deserve it, kind of like how Chris Paul made $30 million last year and didn't deserve it. So, hey, it happens to some of the guys who have the best agents, And fortunately and unfortunately, fortunately for him and unfortunately for the Clippers, I think it's just going to work out for PG. But for the Clippers, I actually think they're having one of the worst off seasons in the entire league. Like, even though the Lakers' name has been dragged through the mud because of, damn it, is it Bobby or Danny Hurley? Dan Hurley.
Dan Hurley.
I don't know why I want to say Bobby. Dan Hurley turning him down, Klay Thompson turning him down. But I think that they're still going to be okay because they got a solid coach in JJ Redick, somebody who hasn't done it before, who's going to have some assistance in Nate McMillan, Scotty Brooks, who's going to help him out. But
right.
I just think that the Clippers really lost out more than anybody. Even the San Antonio Spurs got better by even getting a Chris Paul who's not making $12 million or 11. He is going to make $11 million this year. He's not going to make 30 last year, and he's going to throw tons of lobs to Wemby, who will be his first-time All-Star this year. I'm calling it right now. Victor Wembanyama will be a first-time All-Star in his second season.
Right, and that's a good point. And San Antonio did get better. They got better through the draft. They had some solid pickups. But even Harrison Barnes is going to be a nice pickup for them. Not to mention, they also have an ace in the hole. If they want to trade a Keldon Johnson or a Devin Vassell in order to address another need, Trey Jones just signed an extension last year, but you could probably move him. Those three guys are young, and they've got some value to them. They could do that as well. So San Antonio is going to be on the rise. I think the Houston Rockets are going to be on the rise as well. We'll see if they decide to trade like a guy like Jalen Green or Alpi Şengün. But even if they don't, they came awfully close to making the play-in last year. You know,
Şengün? He's solid. He's
really good. I was just going to say, had he not gone down, you know, maybe they would have made a bigger run at it. So, you know, they're gonna be a good team as well, and they'll have the assets to maybe make a move down the road as well if they want to, you know, maybe address their front court or maybe go after Brandon Ingram or something like that. You know, I know they were interested in Bridges, Mikal Bridges from now with the New York Knicks, but you know, they ultimately decided on Reed Shepherd at the number 3 pick. So we'll see how that works out for them. But that's where the Lakers really need to watch out for, because the logjam for the West could increase with those two teams coming up. So your margin for error is still about the same as it was last year, which isn't much, where, yeah, some of these teams, you know, took maybe a step back, but not so much of a step back where they completely fall out of the equation. That's where I wanted Laker fans and the Laker front office to understand that logjam is going to increase. By the way, another team no one's talking about that's going to be better, Chaz, the Memphis Grizzlies. They're going to be good next year.
There's always a couple teams that made the playoffs the year before that didn't make it the next year, right? The Warriors and the Kings this past year. Who could be that team in the West this year? You know what I mean? Or was it the Pelicans? The Pelicans, the Kings, the Warriors. Damn near half the teams that made the playoffs in the West didn't make it this year. So
Pelicans taking a step back, sure, but I don't think
I don't think so. Now with DeJounte Murray in the fold,
well, yeah, but their front court is shot, dude. They lost Larry Nance in the trade. They lost Valanciunas. Who's going to be their big man?
Zion. You count on Zion. Zion and those terrible knees and those terrible feet. You count on Zion because you drafted him number 1 and gave him all the money in the world. And that's just what you're left with. Zion. That's it.
I got an idea for Pelicans. If there's any Pelican fans listening, and I know we're going to wrap up soon, you got Brandon Ingram, who's a great trade chip. A team that could make sense for Ingram could be the Cleveland Cavaliers to shore up that wing position and give Donovan Mitchell a really solid complement. Who's been rumored to be on the move? Jared Allen. You put Jared Allen on the Pelicans in a pretty big blockbuster move, I think that trade works out for both teams. What do you think?
I think it could. That's actually a good one. But we'll see. I mean, does the money work? Does the CBA aprons and all that come into the fold? I don't know exactly. We got to get our trade machine out. But, man, we could be on here talking about all the stuff that's happened in the last 30 days forever. But we're going to save some of it for this great offseason that we have coming up. We got Summer League. We still got technically free agency. I think a lot of trades are going to go down closer when we get to training camp. And obviously we got Team USA basketball. So We'll be here every week talking and breaking it down. We'll obviously get into a lot of WNBA as well. A lot of Caitlin Clark, a lot of Angel Reese, a lot of New York Liberty, Phoenix Mercury, even the Sparks are getting some love these days. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Fever, even though they got one of the worst records in the league because they have the Golden Goose and Caitlin Clark. So we'll be breaking it all down this summer. Appreciate you guys tapping in with us in the Outlet Forum. Follow us on all platforms from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us on all platforms because we're coming to you live every single week with hot takes and hot fire all the time. Chris, where can they follow you, my man? Obviously, you can see it right there, but let it know.
On Twitter at Chris_Camello. I'm also on Instagram, CCamello1. And be sure to follow us on at the Outlet Forum on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. We always got new postings every day, keeping up with all the big signings. Like today, Kyle Lowry staying in Philadelphia, man. 19 years in. He's going to stay at the home of brotherly love.
Minimum, right?
What?
For the minimum, right?
I think so. It didn't really say the contract terms, but yeah, that was the last little nugget to throw. But good stuff tonight, man. And I hope you guys like the new restream, the new rebrand.
I told you guys we were going to come back better and stronger. You know, we investing back into us. So let's figure it out, and we'll be with you guys.